We have our pick show, we have the first look, so we're just going to call this the Sunday show, the football show, the final takes, something like that. I don't know. We'll come up with a better name. Brody, how you doing this Sunday? And what are you looking at on this slate? People will sort of trickle in. It always happens, but what are you sort of looking at it as an overall on this slate from what we talked about the other day, and maybe for the people who weren't paying attention then, what games are you focusing on?
Well, I think I'm kind of sticking to what I did on the pick show, and just kind of going with the Chargers. Aaron Rodgers, I like that game, and some of those stacks I think I'm still going to go with. So I think that's where I'm still tending what I talked about on the pick show. So
it does feel like, I mean, look, as disgusted as I am with someone who's just making absolutely no sense, who I've always fought for, defended, loved, I can't do it anymore. But he is the kind of person, right? Like you're a Packer fan. He is the kind of guy that could just come out here and say "F you," like especially against that weak of a secondary. I'm going to throw 5 touchdown passes today, right?
Yeah, I think he's got a good shot at, like a 280-4 type of game.
Mm-hmm.
So, even the 5th touchdown, I could see that.
I'm just throwing it out there. He's like, I mean, just, because I think the one guy who hasn't been getting enough maybe love this week because of some injuries and stuff like that on the offensive side of the ball is Brady. And I actually, take the narrative, the motivation out. I feel like Rodgers has everything like that on his side. But I feel like Brady's the other non-mobile quarterback that wasn't getting a lot of looks, and now everybody sort of seems to be going. People are starting to switch that direction, and Rodgers' ownership is interesting because I actually think you're going to get a ton of ownership on guys like Devontae, but I don't think anybody's playing Aaron Rodgers today. And I'm just sort of thinking out loud, like that just feels like a mistake. So I'm gonna, whatever I end up putting in, I'm not playing a ton of lineups. Rodgers will be in more than 10% of them, maybe 20% of them. So I'm with you on that one. Where do you stand on the other side of that game with Wilson? And then what other games are we looking at?
I've heard Wilson talked up a little bit more coming back. I do like this game a little bit more because of him coming back and being able to feed DK and Lockett a little bit more. So I just feel like this game could be a little bit more scoring with some of the studs and condensed, target share. Like Lockett and Metcalf are going to get the work. Adams is going to get the work. So load those guys up in those stacks, whether you play Wilson or you play Rodgers. I prefer the Rodgers side. I mean, I might be biased on that one, but I mean, Russell coming back off injury, you could see him working out even every game. He was working his legs out. He's going to be in shape. It was a hand injury. He was still doing all the motions, all the film. So the guy was there every day. I just feel like this game could be good, and either side you guys take, I think the quarterbacks are going to be low owned, and then just grab the pieces in the stack. And I kind of went Rodgers with some chalky pieces, and just hoping he's my low owned 4% quarterback.
I'm okay with that though. Like, I mean, like we were saying, like that actually that makes plenty of sense to me. And like you get a slight discount on Brady because I rate them as basically being pretty similar today. Personally, that's where I'm at, and we're still waiting on some injury news. There's just going through. We probably in the next 15 minutes should have a good portion of it because it's always 90 minutes before game time. But we have some afternoon stuff. But I am curious to see. I'm assuming I'm jumping over to the Brady game because Tampa Bay. I think it's really relevant. But we're assuming that Godwin is in, right?
Yeah.
So
I don't mind the Brady call a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
As well. I did build one. I built 10 lineups on DraftKings today. I'm not really doing much MME. I haven't had much time, but I do have a Brady stack that I do like. I like Evans a little bit at the 6.9 price tag on DK. You don't really have to run it back with anything on that game, but if you want to, there's some options. Terry McLaurin's a little priced up, but he's a run back. We talked Gibson on the show. I didn't mind that as a run back option, but you could stack that game up. Are you still playing any Tyler Johnson in that game?
I think if there was a week that Tyler Johnson would have, this would be the week. And it's funny because he's projected like as that popular cheap guy. We've talked about him in previous weeks. This is a game where I could see him really getting off. I really actually think it's a better situation for him. It's a better matchup. And I mean, Washington, in spite of what they did defensively last year, I don't see the same things. I think there's some extra like narrative going into this. I do think Brady is probably the front runner for MVP at this point, with everyone else basically just giving up last week. Regardless of what the odds will tell you, I think that it's going to be hard to like steal from Brady, and I think he'll be spreading the ball out as he always does. So Tyler Johnson in that game, Cameron Braid or OJ Howard, even as long shot, maybe not long shot even, but just really, really cheap options. And that's sort of how you can get to maybe playing a Godwin or an Evans along with a McLaurin on the other side, and maybe even squeezing a Metcalf in. Let's talk about some, we're going to have some chalky, cheap running backs. And we were 100% accurate with the ownership being just completely skewed all over the place. I think we have a better feel for it this morning. That we have cheap running back options. That's the one thing. You can spend up at receiver. So to get some high upside receivers is kind of appealing, because I think Mark Ingram is completely viable. I think Dearness Johnson is more than viable. I think if you're playing a cash game, that's where you start. Najee Harris is the spend up that I like probably the best. But I think there's a lot of interesting running back options. What are your take on these especially these two cheap running backs? And then do you have something else for us maybe that you would be looking at?
Oh man, I'm struggling. I want to get off these cheaper running backs more, but I feel like you got to kind of lock Johnson and almost. I mean, he's going to get the work, whether he has a 20 carries and 75 yards. We don't know, but maybe he has a big game, maybe he doesn't. But I think running back's definitely interesting, because like CMC at 8,400, we kind of talked about on the show. Like on a normal week, he might be getting a little bit more ownership than he would. Delvin Cook's in a really good matchup where I like that Chargers game a lot, guys. Cook, Jefferson, but I'm really tending to go more Jefferson, so I'm less on the Cook side of it, because I do like these cheap running backs where I can get up to these higher end receivers, as I kind of like the high end receivers today.
Well, let me bring up another one, because we don't have any Damian Harris today. Where do you stand on Ramondre Stevenson, or do we maybe take a shot with Brandon Bolden in that game? I mean, I know they tend to split up carries between the New England backs, but these guys are like cheap. They're the same thing with Ingram, and you're going to get a lot lower ownership because of the uncertainty of how things will sort of play out. Where do you stand with it? I think that Stevenson is every bit as good of a play, well, as Ingram maybe. I think Dearness Johnson is the better play, but don't you think that Stevenson is viable here? Like,
yeah, I just think they're going to be behind in that game, Bobby. I just feel like Cleveland's defensive line has been stout.
They're
I feel
awesome.
like they're going to get to Mac Jones. I really like their defensive line. So I don't know. And with Stevenson and Bolden splitting the work a little bit, I don't know if you're going to really, they've tend to run a lot of guys, right? Like they don't ever
always
give Stevenson just 90% of the carries, right? Or like, it's going to be like a 50-50 split maybe, right? I don't even know. What are you thinking on the split there?
I think it would lean Stevenson's way in the carry side of it. I mean, look, these things flip though these days. Stevenson actually is a guy who does get some pass game work, and but Brandon Bolden will probably be the guy who gets the majority of that. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if JJ Taylor got every bit as much run as they did. So it is as I say it out loud, it feels thin. But I don't know about them necessarily trailing. I believe in New England. I think they're really good. I mean, it would not surprise me. This is going to sound like maybe a little bit nutty right now, but it wouldn't surprise me the least bit if New England made a Super Bowl this year. Like, I really think that they have a lot of talent separately from skill position players. And I think they have enough to get by with their skill position players. And we'll see what Belichick comes up with today. It's going to be hard to predict, but I do think I would lean Stevenson over Bolden and then Taylor, but it really could be split between them. So definitely less like obviously appealing, but it could go that way. And Mark Ingram at just like 30%, I like Mark Ingram today. I want to spend down at running back. It just feels, I'm looking for places to get different, because I feel like he's a little bit thin. Like, I don't know how Mark Ingram in 2021, at the end of 2021, almost 2022, we're going to just treat him like he's an automatic smash play. The only thing is it does feel like he's going to have like almost all the work, but I don't even know that we're right about that. And by the way, even if he does get near the end zone, I mean, Taysom Hill is the running back of that team,
Yeah, that's another wrinkle to throw in there.
Yeah, but the one thing we can trust with Ingram this year is that he's at least played in games where he's gotten 20 plus carries in this season. I mean, not even for this team, but in this season in general. He's getting some work. He had more work in the passing game than we've even seen in his past. So I'm probably going to do it. I'm just looking for ways out of it. That's why I kept bringing up the Stevenson thing. And we already know what our sort of general game plan is. I mean, like we're kind of giving it away, but like we want to play these high-end passing games, right? We want to play Metcalf. We want to play Adams. I want to play McLaurin. I want to play Evans. I want to play Godwin. You know what I mean? We got guys like Tyler Johnson who we can get cheap with at receiver, but overall, mostly we're spending up on receivers, right?
Yeah, I haven't gave you guys my cheap receiver play of the day that's projecting really well in my
Let's do
projections.
it. What is it?
But Gallup is really projecting well right now. It's coming back in that high end offense in that game. So I kind of like to get different, play a little bit of Michael Gallup. I know it might not sound very good, but if I'm going to take a shot on anybody, he could get some looks. He had a couple good games before he got hurt, and they always really liked him as a explosive receiver, and they said he's going to get all his work back in his return role. So over Cedric Wilson. So I know Cedric Wilson was even getting some looks from Dak. So I feel like Gallup can just jump in and get those looks. And at 4K, I think that's where we can save a little bit of salary.
I like all that stuff. By the way, what's up to Jason Nesbitt and what's up to Todd Lang? Good to see you guys in chat. Everybody else, pop on in with your questions or thoughts, your takes on what we're doing on the slate. Because I really like I like the Gallup idea. I like the Tyler Johnson is my other cheap receiver. Is there anybody else we can consider in the cheap receiver range? Because I want to talk a little bit more about some other game stacks that we talked about on our show. But I would love to Jacoby Myers is showing up as a cheap play. Who else are you looking at for cheap receivers?
I was wondering if you're going to mention Jacoby Myers right there in the same projection, but the other one, I think Rondale Moore got announced probable and in. I've been on him. I think he's an explosive player, guys. As a rookie, I've been on him. Maybe he gets some more jet sweeps. Maybe get some more dump offs across the middle. They put some screens out for him this week, So I kind of think he's going to be utilized a little bit. And at 4.4K, I think you can get him in your lineups too.
All right, so you had your bold take. I'm going to go with a bolder take, even though this guy's going to be owned, so it's maybe not a bold take from that perspective. But I'm going to say that with all these high-end receivers that we love, I'm still going to say I'll take Jerry Jeudy for 8 catches and 130 yards and a touchdown. Let's just say something like that. I think Jerry Jeudy is my favorite receiver on the slate. I know he's going to have some ownerships. That's not the crazy hot take part of it, but I could see him being one of the top 5, maybe the highest scoring fantasy producer. And there's a lot of guys in that range. So everybody thinks they're all going to be, they're all similar. I love Jerry Jeudy today. I also think I have to keep my word and get a Denver Philly stack going, especially the Denver side of it. I'm very interested in. Just the pricing works out too easily, and you can get the secondary stacks that you want. You can get a CMC with a high-end receiver if you play, the 5K receivers with a 5K quarterback. So with that said, first of all, do you think are you on Jeudy at all?
I did look at Jeudy Sutton right there in the same price, projected about the same. I like Jeudy. He's if you want to get a little lower owned, you can go with Sutton. I know he's not been doing as good with Jeudy. But one guy that I like coming back in that game that you didn't mention that I'm going to have a bold take on is Noah Fant. I do have a Hurts Philly game stack. I have Hurts, my man Devontae Smith, and I'm running it back with Fant in that game. Maybe he comes back a little bit, and Jeudy and Sutton spread it out a little bit. I was trying to get one of those 3 guys in there so you guys can kind of like get a game stack and then run it back with whoever you like. Jeudy does project well, or $5,300 play. So I definitely agree with what Bobby's saying on the Jeudy call. So.
Yeah, I like that you're on that game a little bit too. I just think that's like of all the games that are out there this week. First of all, I really like the over in that game, and Denver's defense is good. Philly's defense is not. I'm just going to say that right now. Like it's not a good defense. And if we want one thing about Bridgewater, I really think that he's like he's capable. He's competent. You know what I mean? This is not like some scrub quarterback who's trying to figure it out. And I think that you've got a chance at a guy who's going to throw the ball 35 plus times, depending on the game script, of course. And if you can find that out of him, even if he doesn't, like if he has another game like he did against Dallas, I'll take that. I'll take 20 fantasy points from a 5,500 quarterback versus 28 or 30 from a 7,900 quarterback this week. As long as nobody gets 40 in the high end, Brady or Josh Allen or something like that, I think you're going to want one of these cheaper quarterbacks because we want to spend up some other positions. Dak is another guy who could get there, but feels more like a cash gamey kind of play. Like I like that whole game. But when you look at just like saving money on your quarterback on a week like this, to me, I think it's really important to try to do so. Like I like the Chargers game too, but I'm finding myself avoiding Herbert just because I don't want to spend 7K plus. And same thing with same argument I have with Brady, that, you know, with Brady and Rodgers, you know, I like them for all these other things. But do I really need to spend all of that on my quarterback? Can I just do that as my secondary stack and maybe play a Denver, you know what I mean, as my main spending down on quarterback stack? Can I maybe like get away with, I'm trying to think of another really, really cheap one. I don't think I would, I don't know. I honestly don't know what the other cheap one would be. But for me, Bridgewater was the one who stood out to me the most. I actually think there's some, look, this is going to be a long shot play, but Trevor Lawrence would be the other guy that I would look at. Maybe, I don't know even who to pair him with. Like, I guess it'd be Chenault for me, but like maybe Marvin Jones. But I think that if you can get these like 5K for your like quarterback receiver stack, and then use everything else for your secondary stacks, that might be a good tournament route today. What do you think about that? And then take us into some of the other games that you're like, that we talked about.
Yeah, I don't mind attacking that route to get different, because I think people are going to be spending up at those spots. But I don't know. I just feel like I'm pretty condensed on the games that I have talked about. I just feel like I want to go with those guys. I mean, even we didn't talk about a cheap. I mean,
what
you
about
can
Mason Rudolph?
Well, you could.
I don't think I could do it. I don't
to
think
get a little bit better. Okay, to get a little bit better, I could say Kirk Cousins or something in that game. You know, like a Conklin, Justin Jefferson stack or Adam Thielen in that game, and you're still getting in the good stack, a little bit cheaper quarterback in that. But I mean, Mason Rudolph, I don't think I'm playing Detroit defense today. Maybe I think and
favorite D. We said it early. We didn't know that Roethlisberger wasn't going to play, but it doesn't make my. I certainly like that Detroit D. That's my number one defense right now. So I'm with you there.
I'm actually a little more spread out than I've been because I've actually fell in a little bit of builds where I was able to get a little bit more money. So I got up to maybe the Browns a few times. I got up to the Panthers, and I just kind of spread it out. I mean, Panthers aren't. It was like $100 or $200 more or something. But like, yeah, the Jags to the Browns are kind of where I'm falling. That 2.2 to 2.8 range of defenses, and kind of spreading out through there. So.
Yeah, I think there's reasonable options all across the board. I actually think that like that. I actually do think that for me, this is a week where I do want to spend down on defenses because I think one of these 2K defenses comes through every bit. I think they're every bit as good as a lot of these high end defenses. Maybe say for the Bills, you know, like the Bills would every week could put up 25 fantasy points. They probably have the highest ceiling of any defense because they can legitimately, as they've shown this year, shut you completely out, and there's a lot of upside on top of that. What about some of these other game stacks? I mean, we talked a lot this week, and there's a lot being looked at in it for good reasons. The highest total on the slate, Atlanta, Dallas. You know, Matt Ryan is not cheap, but 6K is reasonable. We don't even know, you know, no Ridley. I hope hope things are going better in his life. Other than Kyle Pitts, it's hard to know exactly who you'd want to pair Ryan with. So then you have to spend up a tight end. That's my only issue with I really think that the way this tournament gets won is going to be from these high-priced receivers. That's just my personal take. And I don't have a receiver for Atlanta. You know, Gage. I actually think Taji Sharp is every bit as good of a play. Zacchaeus had the big week last week. I can't find, you know, and then you've got Amari Cooper on the other side of this game at 6,200. CeeDee Lamb 7K, and you mentioned Gallup already as a great off the board. You know, not even off the board. I mean, just low owned play. He's going to be like 5% owned, and so you can get cheap parts of that game. Where do you stand on that game, and then what other games are you looking
at? Yeah, I think on that side, like you can go back to your boy Patterson in that game too. People are talking him up a little bit. Patterson and Pitts, basically the offense for the Atlanta side. If you're going to stack that game up, definitely like Amari Cooper at his price tag. I'm not getting any CD in my builds. Amari, I like him his price. I like a little bit of Elliott off the board if you want to pay the 7K running back. Maybe stack up like a secondary correlation of like Elliott and Pitts. I like. And that build I kind of got there, or I like the Gallup in the Pitts build a little bit too. So that's just that game. We talked a little bit about obviously the Seattle Green Bay game. I like. We talked some Philly Denver game. We talked the Chargers game. Really like those games, guys. AJ Brown might be a little low owned if we want to go there. I believe he's projecting pretty good. He's a little bit high price, right? But he's projected pretty low. And with no Julio now, he didn't really get a bump in ownership. I guess he's 10% now. He did get a bumped up. He was in single digits, mid-single digits, but
10%
He's a
is
little bumped
reasonable.
up, but I mean, someone's got to score some points in that game. They got no Derrick Henry. They got no Julio Jones. Ryan Tannehill has been going to Brown. So, I mean, Brown could have a big game, guys.
Mhm.
I don't really have a lot of Brown, and I'm kind of worried about not getting a lot of Brown or even having any Brown at this point. But I think he's cheaper on FanDuel.
Yeah,
I,
that makes a lot of sense. I actually
a
didn't get
better
my
play on
Vanderbilt.
FanDuel.
I like you. I ended up kind of having like a busy, more of just personal things. I had like friend things to do, a lot of obligational things or whatever. So I didn't have as much time for football to make 150. I'm not going crazy. So I have like 20 total lineups today, and they're all on DraftKings. And sorry guys about my builds. I thought they should have saved, but in all fairness, they would have been completely different because I had my builds done before we had a lot of the recent information. So you're getting exactly what I'm doing on the show. I'm with you on everything we talked about. Seattle, Green Bay, Denver, Philly, Atlanta, Dallas. I'm really think like, I'm looking at some of the chalk out there, and I just wanted to like go over. First of all, James Conner's a good running back. Like he always has been. He came from the Pittsburgh system. I think playing James Conner today is a mistake. That's my personal take. If there's one thing about Carolina's defense overall, they actually have a really good run defense. They as a team, they've been terrible, and they might give up possessions, but I just don't think that's the play I want to go with. I also think Najee Harris actually, I think it hurts him not to have Roethlisberger there because that, the potential for 15 drop-offs is probably even less likely with Mason Rudolph, which sounds weird to say because you'd think a backup quarterback, but it's just the way that Roethlisberger's arm strength and game style leads him. He's throwing the ball to Najee Harris behind the line of scrimmage, somewhere between 3 and occasionally 15 times in a game, like in a 19 target game. And I don't think it's going to happen as much today. I think they'll try to run him, but I don't think that's going to work as well. Anyway, and so Najee Harris, even though I like him as a spend up, like if I had to, but I'm probably spending down, I would skip the Conner. I think I'm going to skip the Conner Harris. Even though I like the Philly, the Detroit Pittsburgh. No, I actually don't like the Detroit Pittsburgh game, but DeAndre Swift, I'll skip. I'll probably end up skipping Eckler. I'll probably end up skipping Zeke. That's going to be the toughest one for me. But I'm more into this next range of guys. The Leonard Fournette in terms of ownership. Leonard Fournette. I really like Jonathan Taylor as a spend up. We talked about him before, but I just think I'm going to probably avoid it. It's just a lot to spend for a running back. And I like I said, I think the receivers win you this slate. That's my take. It doesn't mean that it's right. So I'm sort of leaning that route and trying to spend less than 7K on my running backs. Zeke might squeeze in. Patterson. I do like Dalvin Cook if I was going to be, all over those things, but I'm going to be trying to get weird with it. And I'm even going to play a little bit of Michael Carter. Why not? There's a chance for double-digit targets for this guy in this Buffalo game. It's a really good defense for Buffalo. They may not score at all, but if Michael Carter has 8 or 9 catches, which we've seen before, I think he's really interesting. The only guy I really want to spend up for at running back is McCaffrey. How do you sort of see the running backs playing out this week? And we talked a little bit about it, but who else are you looking at? I know you're mostly going to the stack, correlation and all that stuff. But who do you like maybe who's popular, maybe who you like who's a little bit off the board?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Jonathan Taylor calls okay, but he's getting chalky too. Like he's owned. Like a lot of these guys are kind of mid-tier owned. I think the CMC is the best call we got as a lower owned high dollar that can have explosive ceiling game. And I like that. I don't have as much Eckler. I have more of the passing attack in that game. I don't have a lot of James Conner, like you said. A guy that I hear and talked up a little bit more has been your boy Patterson. In that game, getting a lot. I do like Carter. He's popped up in the projections a little bit more, and we've never really talked about that game. But I do have a Josh Allen stack.
Yeah, you do.
For a big stack, but I did get rid of Carter in that one. But I'm going to build another one with Carter in it, and I do have Carter in another build. So I do like Carter today. As a little bit off the wall all board, but I'm staying pretty condensed. I like the chalky running backs. I like a couple CMC, a couple Carter to get different, funneling some Cook in there and a little bit of Najee. And I'm pretty tight. Like I don't have that many lineups this week either, so I'm pretty tight build here.
It's relaxing a little bit, right? Like it feels a little bit like, oh, we can kind of breathe. You know what I mean? It usually feels like such a, you know what I mean? I feel a little more relaxed this week.
I feel like I haven't even started my FanDuel builds yet. I'm going to do that after the show. But, I'm only building 3 over there, 3 lineups on FanDuel. So this should be simple. and playing a little cash today. So I'll just run an optimal cash build, and then yeah, so I can talk on the show. I can kind of ease into my day a little bit, like you said. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like 150. Making mistakes. Trying to jam stuff in, last minute news. So like I'm just kind of chill today too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I want to address some things people are saying in the chat here. Tony A with always some good points, and I do understand Denver's missing. I think it's going to end up. It likely will end up being 3 offensive linemen. That is certainly something to keep an eye on. I am not betting on Philadelphia. I am not going to stop betting against Philadelphia's defense. It's been the right thing to do basically every week in the NFL this season. And by the way, the Philadelphia's defense can score points and stuff like that too. They always do. I don't know how that happens, but for the last 10 years or whatever, since I started playing any sort of fantasy, for some reason the Eagles are always like one of the better scoring defenses, even when they aren't a good defense. And I don't think this is a good defense. To answer the X Factors question, why is OJ Howard popping? Because no Gronk, potentially a banged up Godwin is gonna, and Brady to tight ends is a thing. But I think I'd prefer the Brate side of it. Where do you stand if you had to play one of Howard or Brate?
Ooh, that's a tough question. Howard's got the better projection at 2.7. Brate, they're both 2.7, but Howard eases them out just barely. They're both close. Brate's getting a little more ownership than Howard, but it might not be updated yet either. I don't know.
Rody, how do you have 2 different names that you're commenting on from this? That's my real question in our chat. I've got DFS in life with your face next to it. Then I've got Jacob Brody. Which is you? And what's going on over here? How's that happen?
Both of them are me. I just didn't realize I was on my main Gmail account's just my name for professionalism. And then I didn't switch over to my DFS and life account before I commented. Sorry.
By the way, I did jump into the chat and Roto Grinders the other day, but I still my YouTube account we turned into the True DFS account, and it says True DFS when you comment. And shout out to True DFS and all you guys being great out there. Like they immediately they're like, oh, what's up? Bobby's in chat. We got our boy Bobby back, because it was my guy Kirkwood, who I love that guy. He's a friend. He's a buddy. And then Dean was on there, who I've always gotten along good with Dean. So, but then everybody in chat was like, "Oh, we miss Bobby. Nobody can talk. We need, I need an auctioneer coming up. Like, can we get Bobby to do that?" But the most important thing is they knew what True DFS was, and they knew that it's our site, and they also made some comments that we're doing some good stuff over there. And by the way, guys, we do have the primitive version of the optimizer you can check out on the site, but it's going to be. I mean, we're adding things to it all the time. I keep working on the back end of this, and it's not going to be necessarily the best. What it will maybe be is the most relevant, easiest to use shortly of a lot of these ones in the industry. And we're going to focus on 6 to 10 categories per sport that we're really focusing on without getting into every single detail and minutia, because some of the stuff, and I love what RG does, but I don't think we have the capability to do it, because that's a whole team of people we don't have that probably. We're going to make it simple to use, and it's going to have Sheets' projections. Basically, we're trying to create what Sheets has been doing and dominating every sport with that. So keep an eye out for the optimizer getting improved, but you can still use it if you want to make like one optimal lineup at the moment, which is oddly enough in basketball he just keeps putting in the cash games, hasn't missed it yet. Hasn't missed a cash yet. So take that for what it's worth. Knox B-Day. You guys, I'm telling you, the B-Day narratives are really important to keep an eye on. And I touched on it the other day with Russell Westbrook. Especially, in football, birthday narratives, maybe a guy gets an extra ball thrown at him or something like that is the best case you can maybe hope for. And especially in a game where you're up by a bunch, maybe you could say something. But remember, the biggest narrative that happens with birthdays is the guys tend to party the night before. Like that's something you got to look out for. And like in football, it doesn't matter. It still matters a lot. But in basketball, let's ease up on the birthday narrative. That can be a very dangerous game to play. You know what I'm saying, Rody?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I had notes, and by the way, fortunately, have some good friends in much higher places than I am in Hollywood. And when I see pictures of guys partying the night before they're supposed to be playing a basketball game, it's going to take something out of them. It's hard to play a basketball game hungover at that level. All right. Anything else question wise that we should get to? Stevenson. I'm guessing he's saying he's active for the Patriots.
Yep, he's active now. So you got both him and Bolden in there. Guys, also I been doing a little producing on the side for Bobby here. I've put the Discord link in the True DFS page in there. So if you guys haven't stopped by the Discord or new here, checking us out. The links are in the description.
Yep.
Yeah.
By the way, Rhodey's done an incredible job, and I'm not just saying that because he's on the show with me. Me and she'd say it all the time. Awesome job. Like literally, it's like a tutorial in chat. He goes going in depth with everybody. He's an equal opportunity answering questions to every single thing that comes up. Really appreciate that, man. And it is a wonderful Discord for that, in large part for that reason. And I'm saying what's up to my old buddy K9 Bronco, who's been with me forever and always been with us. And hey, bro, I hope you take one down today. Good luck to you as well. All right, Rhodey, we're sort of, we're going to get out of here in about 10 minutes. What else do we have that maybe we didn't touch on in this slate? That you had the Fant call, which I didn't really address. I like that idea. I also love Goddard on the other side of that game. Seattle, Green Bay, Denver, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Dallas, and what was the other game that you mentioned that I'm not holding up here for the people maybe who are just tuning in?
Seattle, Green Bay. You didn't say Chargers?
Oh, I didn't say Chargers and That's the big one. Yeah, Chargers. And
Chargers, the big one. I'm kind of more off the Dallas, Atlanta, but I do have pieces of it. I don't mind Josh Allen stack run back with Carter. We talked about. So a little bit of there. We talked CMC in that Carolina Arizona game. Detroit's kind of a mess of a game. You talk about Tampa Bay. I do have a Brady Evans stack. You like Terry McLaurin on that. We talked Gibson earlier this week. Jonathan Taylor in that Jacksonville game, a little chalkier. But yeah, I think today is a day where I just want to turn on the TV at about 4:00.
Sounds good to me, man. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
So I think that might be the strategy today. So
yeah, and in future weeks, we'll do a better job getting out our pick show a little bit earlier, so maybe more people can see. Because I know that we were a little bit late this week. Just wanted to throw that out there. But I kind of agree with you on the 4:00 things. However, I have to say of the early games, and I do this in basketball all the time because it's so important these days, as we know, how many guys are announced out after the initial first game is locked. It's literally like 9 of the most important guys end up getting announced out like every day, it feels like. But in the early games, I do think the Tampa Bay Washington thing is the thing. I like the Buffalo skinny stack with Josh Allen. I like the Atlanta Dallas game, but I don't know how much exposure I'm going to end up with on that game, which feels weird a little bit. I still sort of have a sneaky suspicion that could end up being a dud a little bit for Atlanta. And I think that Dallas is better defensively than they get credit for, last week notwithstanding. Jacksonville, Indianapolis, if I was playing 150, I would have some exposure there, but I'm not really going to get heavily involved in it. And then you get, but in the afternoon, you got Minnesota and the Chargers, you got Philly and Denver, which we like. We love the Seattle Green Bay game. So I agree with you, man. Let's wait till 4 Eastern, and maybe that's the way to play the slate.
yeah,
Jerry Jeudy breakout game. Sorry, go ahead.
I said hopefully we make catch up in the late games. We got a few pieces right in the first part of the day, and we hit big in the late games today.
Yep, absolutely. And
some
by the way,
people like that early screenshot too.
Yeah,
and like the early screenshot. They like to load up on the 1 p.m. games and then post there in first place and then watch themselves tank all day.
Yeah, and there's no work. By the way, even if I had that with the Millionaire Maker one week and I was in first place after, and you just feel so dead. Like even with 200 plus points on a low weight, whatever week, you just feel dead. It's not a great feeling. You want to have like something in there. It doesn't mean the early ones can't win it. It's not the fun sweat. You want the sweat where you got the guys still playing, especially on a day like today. And by the way, not to mention on top of that, like CMC, even in a game where they're only projected to score 7 points, not really, like they're projected to score 17. I really like the CMC play today. And I'm just going to say, like, I think there's a few good bets out there today. I like Arizona very much. I think they're legit and for real. I don't care though. I think that the Carolina, I think they're better than they're getting credit for. And I don't care if it is Walker throwing the ball. I think that's a cover for me for Carolina over Arizona. I really like Denver to beat Philadelphia, and I think that game. I like the over in that game big time. I actually like the over in the Green Bay Seattle game. I think there's a lot of narrative and motivation going on, and Rodgers is the kind of guy who can just come out there and rip you apart. I also think that Washington to cover against Tampa Bay is a really good bet. So those are my favorite bets of the day. Do you have any bets? Any? I mean, I know you're not maybe placing them, but anything you sort of have takes on a certain game that maybe the spread seem a little off to you?
Oh man, I need to get into the betting market a little bit more. I do like some of your takes there. I do hear a lot of people talking Detroit money line now, a little bit more. If you guys want to get real risky over the Pittsburgh, what do you think of that one?
What's that? Detroit money line?
Yeah, Detroit money line.
You know, I'm a sucker for teams that haven't won a game that to take them at the money line, but why not? My only fear is I think Pittsburgh's defense is one of the better defenses in football. That's the only thing I would say that worries
I
me.
do agree with that. I just think their defense has been so good, but like they've not really proved it to me though, man. Like,
Well, their defense looks
teams are
worse because they have guys out there who are like they don't have the ball hardly ever. They're throwing 70 passes a game and they're all 4 yards. So the other team has the ball the whole game. Like it's tough for them.
yeah, they're out there a lot. That's right. That's right. Yeah. So
We got a question from Michael Collier about Cordarrelle Patterson versus James Conner. And my personal take is Cordarrelle Patterson, mostly because of game environment. And I believe in Carolina's run defense not being a joke. James Conner, like, I could feel like a fool on this one. I don't like either of them, to be honest with you, as much this week. I'm lower on Patterson than I have been, even though I think it scares me because I was on this play and I think I'm almost like worried, like I overswayed my brain. I was so on it, and then whenever everybody else got it, I'm like, oh, I don't need to be doing that. You know what I mean? Where do you stand with Conner versus Cordarrelle Patterson? I think Conner is going to project better the more chalky play, but they're both going to be fairly popular. Between those two, who would you play in a GPP? I'm guessing it's GPP because that's what we do.
yeah, I mean Connor's going to be a little bit projected better. He's going to have double the ownership. So it depends on your lineup, guys. We always talk about this in the Discord. But like if you guys need a lower owned play, Cordarrelle Patterson's currently coming at 9% in that game. Could be a little lower, could be a little more. But Conner, I think, is going to be very chalky. So if you need a lower ownership guy, guys, take the Patterson call. It's only a $300 difference. You can change the defense and get that. And then you can do that. But I'm tending to be a little bit lower on both of those guys today as well. I did talk about them in the show earlier, but as possible go-to running back options because they're projecting well. Patterson's been getting a lot of work. I do like him. James Conner, I just feel like I don't know. He's been scoring touchdowns. He's been getting work. I do like the running back, but I just feel like Carolina defense. I've been playing them a little bit today, and I feel like that's kind of where you want to go with that one. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel a little off on that game today. So.
Yeah, I actually think look, I know they looked amazing last week against a very broken Niners team. But something just feels like if we don't have Kyler Murray, unless he play, I mean, like if he ends up getting late announced in, which I don't expect to happen, then I can understand this spread. I just feels weird to have Colt McCoy favored by 10 points against anybody. I know he had a great week last week, guys, and I like Colt McCoy. I have no problem with him, but 10-point favorite in the NFL, that's a big thing. Evans or Godwin to stack with Brady. I would lean. I think Godwin, you're going to get the lower ownership slightly. I would lean Evans, to be honest, partially just because I don't know. I am a little concerned about some things with Godwin lately. Okay, well, that's interesting. So that moment when you get the weird message about your Anyway, sorry.
Is there news pop out?
No, that was a personal thing. It was just very strange. My long-term past ex-girlfriend just started following me for some reason. I was like, oh, I thought it was a news thing because they make the same noise, the Instagram noises and the lineup updates, who's in. So that's what I thought it was. I was like, oh, that surprised me.
Seeing your show today, Bobby.
I
changed the title. I added some little hashtags in there today. We're booming, man. We're booming.
That's what it is, man. It's just Rody over there doing all the producing work. And all of a sudden, maybe I don't want you to do so much of it. Now I've got everything coming back in my life. What's going on here?
Yeah, now I'm in the doghouse here.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, I think we're going to get out of here in just a few minutes. So ask any more questions you have. I feel like I have a nice, condensed, relaxing Sunday ahead of me. It's been a long weekend, so I'm excited just to chill and watch a little football and maybe not get millions involved. I'm going to be much, much heavier, but it's weird. I have a very good second half of the season in football. Usually at week 10, I'm usually after week 4, I start getting going. And then like 10 through, I always do the junkie weeks at the end. No one wants to play. That's when I do well. But I'm sort of like holding out until I have a really, really strong take that I like for a week to just go completely ham and max enter something. But Rody, what like is there anything else we didn't cover? I mean, I've got my highlighted players. Anybody we didn't really talk about that maybe you're high on?
Probably Justin Jefferson in the lower own. I'm getting him a lot for lower own guys.
Yeah.
In that top tier receiver. I feel like I need more CMC. Godwin and Evans actually getting about the same ownership now. I know we just talked about that, but like that's about the same. I do like DK Metcalf, as we talked about. Even Tyler Lockett in that game. He's getting a little bit lower ownership. I think DK's ownership popped up a little bit more recently, but I feel like that week we should go with like a DJ Moore, James Conner secondary stack or a freaking thank God Robbie Anderson's about done. I think I'm off Jacoby Myers today too. Those are two guys I feel like I've been playing every week.
You just cursed it right there. You just cursed it.
I did, and I just
Robbie Anderson.
You guys should probably load up. I mean, we're talking about what guys were probably going to screw us today here.
Robbie Anderson.
Those are the guys that are going to screw us. He's going to have like a 3 touchdown game for 120 or something, or 150 or something.
Yeah. If anybody knows Carolina or anything, and what if PJ Walker is like exactly what Robbie Anderson needed? I don't know. Maybe he throws the ball that can actually be caught. And by the way, that's not a knock. I feel really bad for how Darnold played like crap, but like it's really hard to play games when your receivers are dropping 10 passes. That's really I don't care who you are. You could be Tom Brady or anybody. If you drop 10 passes in the game as a team, you're not gonna look good as a quarterback. So I think Robbie Anderson is now a sure thing, even though I hate the play. I'm almost positive he's going to go off because you just jinxed it for us, Rody.
Probably.
So we're gonna have to play Robbie Anderson some.
I should swap my Rondell Moore player because I think they're the same price. I should get Robbie Anderson over Rondell Moore now. So
there you go. That's probably the right thing to do. I mean, I am going to highlight some of my favorite things this week. I like the Rodgers idea to Adams. Obviously, is the most logical thing and probably the only way I'll do it. I'll eat some of the Johnson and Ingram chalk, and I'll even throw in the Patriots with Stevenson. But I love Metcalf, McLaurin, Evans, Johnson, Gallup, as you mentioned. Great. I love the Gallup call. Jacoby Myers, just because he's cheap. But Jerry Jeudy is my favorite receiver, and I love the CMC play today. I'm a sucker for it. I'm a sucker for this Carolina offense today. I don't think they're going to go crazy or anything. But look, man, these guys are not being owned at all, and you've got a 6.3K DJ Moore. You've got forget Robbie Anderson for a minute, but maybe Robbie Anderson because you just jinxed it. But CMC and Moore, I think, stand out to me. So those are my favorite ones there. Anybody else who you want to highlight before we end up getting out of here?
No, I pretty much gave you a lot of plays today. We talked about a lot of good stuff. I think guys just follow through and let's hopefully have a big week here.
Let's do it. All right. Good luck to everybody and let's crush it. We'll see you guys soon. Go to Team True DFS. Let us know what's happening. Me and Rody will be in Discord. We'll keep track with you guys, and hopefully we have a sweat for $1 million, or even just 6 figures would be nice for somebody out there. So let somebody do it. Let's go, guys.